Hello guys, gals, and Book Nook pals. It's Pluck the Bunny here with another video. This time we're doing a tutorial on electronics. This can primarily be used for switching out the battery box on a Book Nook, though this can be adapted to any miniature hobbyist crafty application. We are going to do this solder free today, so no solder gun required. Also, I don't do video editing, so I'm going to ramble. There's going to be weird pauses. This is more for help. This is not for views or growing the channel. So, this is our traditional lighting kit that comes with a Book Nook. I simplified it down to one LED for today. Usually it's a multi-LED setup, but that changes really nothing. So Book Nooks come with one or two styles. Either they're a bunch of loose LEDs that are wired that look something like this. Okay, an LED at one end, and then the red and black, or sometimes they're white and gray wires. As you go through your build, you run your wires and you twist them all together so you have all the positives on one end, all the negatives on one end. If you are lucky enough, they come with a battery box like this, and then you would just wire up the red and the black to the red and the black, and then you're done. But that has really gone by the wayside. Nowadays, we see a lot more of the kits with the connectors, just to make it a little bit easier for those who aren't comfortable doing the wiring. This does lock you into the battery box, so we're gonna cover today how to eliminate that. I simplified it down to one LED, but usually this will be some kind of like cattail where you have a bunch of LEDs and they're all pre-wired, and then at the end you have a red and black wire with a JST-ZH connector. That just is the name of this white connector that plugs into the connector on the port. So you'll have usually a AAA battery box. It'll have two ports on it, one for a 2-pin connector, one for a 3-pin connector. The 2-pin connector is going to be all of your LEDs, and then your 3-pin connector is going to be your touch sensor. And they only go in one way, as you just saw me make that mistake, so you know you're gonna get the orientation correct. Just don't try and force it in, because if you bend the pins, you're kind of SOL. Though if you're here, you're learning how to eliminate this anyway. So once you put your batteries in, you can see on the LED right here, as you tap the sensor, it doesn't even need to be your finger, it will toggle the power on and off. So that's what this chip is doing. And this chip right here, it's regulating the power going to the LEDs. Me personally, I like to automate all my LEDs so they're all hooked into my smart home, so I can just say Book Nooks on, and it turns all my Book Nooks on. So I don't like the touch sensor, because then you still have to touch every Book Nook. So another thing that's important, when you're pulling the wires out of these Book Nooks, make sure you get under the little ridge of the connector, or at the very least, I like to grab it at the base and then just like rotate my fingers in, and that gives you a nice stable pull, so you're not ripping out the wires and breaking them. Okay, so we're gonna just ignore this touch sensor for the time being. Well, not for the time being. We're gonna ignore the touch sensor, and we're gonna get rid of it, and we're gonna focus on this battery box. So you'll notice this battery box does not have the connector, so we need to get rid of the connectors. So this is what I always found was the most difficult part, because you really emotionally, you're just cutting something off, and you have to hope that you can fix it on the other end, because if you don't, then you've rendered your kit unusable. So at the bottom of the wire cutters, you'll notice there's a straight part, and that's the wire cutter as opposed to the stripper part. So you're just going to cut the wires. And then if you look here, we have the different gauges. Now the way gauges work is the more times they pull a wire to stretch it, the thinner it gets. So the higher the number gauge, the smaller the diameter of the wire. I have not seen a Book Nook wire that's been larger than 24 gauge, but I always like to start at the top, grab like a centimeter, and just pull. If that doesn't work, if it slides down the wire, then you just move to the next rung on the gun. not gun, because that's the heat gun on the wire strippers. So we're going to do that with the same side again. So we noticed that the largest gauge worked, so we're going to give it about 1 centimeter, little pull. All right, then we're going to turn it to strengthen it. Grab this end, we're going to turn it to strengthen it. Perfect. Now the battery boxes usually come pre stripped for you, but I never have found that to be enough, so we're gonna just give it a little bit more. Okay, see if you notice this left wasn't quite clean, so we're gonna try the next one down. There we go, that's a much cleaner cut. So we're gonna go 24 gauge on this. Yeah, much better. All right, similarly, we're gonna twist these just so we get a nice solid connection. Okay, so now we have our LED with exposed ends, and we have our battery box with exposed ends. Now we need our butt connectors. So what these are is essentially it's a heat shrink tubing with some adhesive, additional adhesive on the inside, and a solder ring in the middle. You're not really liquefying the solder here, it's just to enhance the connection point. We're gonna make the connection ahead of time. This is just gonna solidify the connection, make it stronger. Biggest mistake you can make in this whole process is right here. It's forgetting to put these on the wires before you connect them. Don't ask me how I know. So we're just gonna feed the butt connector over, and we're gonna slide it all the way down to the bottom so it stays out of the way. I'm gonna do it on both right now, just so I don't forget, because like I said, don't ask. All right, and now we have to make our connection. Now it's all low voltage, so I'm not really worried about the cleanest connection or you know, how pretty it looks. Again, your mileage may vary, but this is all going to be hidden stuff. So what I do is we're going to cross the wires here, and we're just going to twist. You don't have to like mesh them together. You don't need a cap here. All right, so once you have a connection like that, oh, see, that's why we're live and in color, people. All right, this is why this heat shrink tubing is a much better option than the really terrible tape they give you in the kits, because if the connection underneath is not good, that tape is not going to do anything other than holding it stable. So I like to wrap it like that, and then I get like the tail, and then I just like to wrap the tail over the middle. We want a little bit of exposed area, because that's where that solder ring inside the heat shrink tubing is going to go. Okay, so something like that. I'm going to do it a little differently on the black side, just so you can see another way of doing it. Again, it's not the prettiest. I'm sure someone with more knowledge of electronics is going to see this video and comment on how it could be done better, but you can also just lay this back down along the wire. We know that this rubber is an insulator, because you don't electrocute yourself when you're touching it. So 2 different ways. This probably is a little more stable. This is a little easier. But now what we're going to do is we're going to slide. See, that's the other advantage to that one, is this is a 24 gauge butt connector, and because these are basically the same size wires, you need to get very close in size. So the big bump you get from wrapping it around can cause some problems, where with this one, it's gonna slide right over because we just folded it down along the edge. So if you look, we're getting that ring. Okay, this ring is going over the exposed area. So you see the exposed area right there. We want to try and get that metal ring right in the middle. And don't worry about my fingertips. This is just dried glue from all the book nooking I was doing last night. It's about to get a little loud, so just bear with me. All right, turn my heat gun on, and we're just going to aim at our connection point. Rotating the wire as we go, just so we get even heat distribution, and it shrinks evenly on all sides. Doesn't really get too hot that you're gonna burn yourself. You can see the tube gets a little translucent. it starts to shrink. We might see these white rings expand out as they melt and the outside tubing condenses it. Again, you're not really going to see that little ring liquefy, but it is going to shrink like that. So now, and the nice thing about this is it's cool to touch on the outside. Just don't touch that metal in the front. So now we have a really stable connection. This is not moving on here. This is connected. What if you don't have a heat gun? Okay, so again, we want to make this as easily accessible to every entry-level person. So what I like to do, and that's another reason why I like the heat shrink tubing with the built-in soldering, is on the very tip of these wire strippers, there's a little plier function. So I like to just put that right over the soldering, and I like to just crimp it down. Okay, so is this as stable a connection point? Absolutely not. Now what you can do is you can take a little bit of electrical tape and wrap that around the outside, tape the edges, and that'll hold it a little more stable. But if you don't have a heat gun yet, if you don't want to spend the extra money, let's see if we were successful. Because if not, we're 11 minutes into a video where I'm about to embarrass myself. So we're going to turn this to off just to make it a little more dramatic. So we have our batteries in. All right, take a look at our LED here. Let's turn the lights down, give us a little more mood lighting. All right, we'll hold it in the darker area. And now when we turn our power switch on, hey, we get power to our lights. So that is the very, very, very basic method by which you can convert from the standard touch sensor wires to a bigger battery box with a power switch for on and off. That's pretty much it. We're going to go into the next video on how to then plug in that AA battery eliminator to this to avoid burning out AA's and AAA's all the time. But this is the very basics. Heat gun, wire strippers, butt connectors, battery boxes. I'm going to put links to everything in the video description. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you found this illuminating, and yes, I have no apologies for the dad joke, but yeah, have a wonderful day, guys.